Hi, my name is Craig Davis, and today I'm going to demonstrate the use of the Force.com IDE with a Git repository stored in the Atlassian Stash product. So the first thing I'm going to do is just make sure that we're all on the same page and assume that you've already created a remote repository in Stash that holds the source folder and subfolders that you want to use for your Salesforce project. In this case, you can see I have a branch called Master, a folder called Source, and it has your typical Salesforce class or Salesforce folders underneath it. Now when we go into Eclipse, we want to make sure Eclipse is set up to be Git friendly. So there's a few things we want to do. The first thing is we want to go to Eclipse Preferences. Now on a Mac it's set through Eclipse Preferences. On a Windows box I think it may be set up under Windows, you'll have to look. But we're basically trying to get to our general preferences, and we want to go to the Team tab or Team selection in the tree and then the Git selection in the tree, and we want to make sure that this path here is set to be the same path that you use for your Salesforce projects. Once that's set, we come back to the environment and we want to make sure we get these buttons up here for Git, which give you the ability to fetch and pull and so forth. So we go to Window, Custom Perspective, and you select the checkbox here next to Git on the toolbar visibility, and then for Command Groups availability you want to select Git down here. Once that's done, we want to go back up to Window, we want to do Show View, Other, and we want to go under the Git folder and make sure that we have Git repositories and Git staging selected. As you can see, that's changed my perspective to show this tab and this tab. Okay, so now the next thing we want to do is actually connect to our remote Git repository. We do that by going down here and selecting the second choice, Clone a Git repository. It's asking for the URI path, which if you've ever done anything like this before, you know that you can get that up on your site. I'm going to copy it here and I'm going to paste it in here. Now in Windows this works great. It auto-populates the rest of the folder or the rest of the screen. And in my case, for some reason on the Mac it doesn't work so well, so I manually have to go in here and tweak it. And hopefully I typed everything right. I hit Next. It went out to the repository and it found the branches available, and I just had one branch since I'm just doing a demonstration here, and I hit Next. And now you can see it's saying where do you want this to be stored, and it gave me the default that I set earlier in the Eclipse Preferences for the path, and then it's going to use the repository name for the folder, and everything else is fine. I hit Next. And it's going to go ahead and pull all those files down from the remote repository and make them available in a local branch called Master, and that will show down in the bottom left side of the screen right here, and you can see I now have a local branch called Master, and it's tracking to a remote branch called Master, and you can see this, they have the same version number, 26A1289. Alright, so now we have the local master copy. In most situations, especially in a team environment, you're not going to want to work on master, you're going to want to work on your own branch. So you can right click master and hit create branch, and I'm going to call this branch lead improvements because I'm going to be working on leads. Not a great name, but you get the idea. You cannot have spaces in this branch name, otherwise it won't work. And then I'm going to say configure upstream for push and pull and merge upstream commits into local branch and hit finish. Oh, and by the way, it defaults to check out this new branch, and that's what I want to do. So down here now I have a new local branch. So all of my Git repositories are set up the way I want them. And so the next step is I'm going to go and connect to my Salesforce sandbox where I want to do this work. So I go up into the top left, I right click, and I hit New, Force.com Project. And for the project name, I'm going to want to name this exactly the same name as my repository down here in the bottom left corner. The reason for this is the Eclipse will name your workspace folder the project name. Okay, I've copied in my credentials. Make sure I'm set to the sandbox environment, hit next, and it's going to retrieve all of my options for that sandbox to create this project. And I'm going to go ahead and just take the default here and hit finish. It's going to retrieve all of those files from the sandbox. Okay, so now on the top left we can see that we have our new project, and the first thing that I usually forget to do this, but the first thing you should do is right click on the project, go to force.com and say work online. The reason for this is by default if you work on these classes and components and so forth, they don't save up to the sandbox by default, so you need to put it online. Now if we open up this a little bit so you can see, so down here we can see that we have a bunch of new files that weren't here before, and what had happened was when we downloaded all these files from the sandbox, Eclipse recognized, or Git within Eclipse recognized that these files were updates to files that were in the Git repository, and so it's saying, hey, these are unstaged changes. Well, the first thing we want to do is we want to get rid of things that we don't care about, that we're not putting under revision control. So I'm going to right click some of these folders, and I'm going to go down to Team and say Ignore, and that will clean up some of these files over here. I'm going to do the same thing here on the package XML and on the schema. Okay, so that cleaned up some of them. There's probably a few more in here. You can see at the top we have a few more files I don't really care about. And the rest of these, we still have a conflict, and we have a choice. We can either stage them and commit them and get them up into master, which really doesn't make sense if you think about it. Master is your production copy, or as close to production as possible. And this sandbox may be outdated. So I'm just going to select all these files over here, and I'm going to right click them, and I'm going to say replace with head revision. Now what that'll do is it'll overwrite the files that I got from the sandbox. Okay, so now our environment is ready to work. We're on the local leads improvement branch, and we have some classes, and I want to, let's say I want to work on this first class here, and I'm just going to go ahead and put some test changes in here. I'm going to hit save. Okay, and you can see now it shows up in my unstaged changes, and I'm going to try and double click that and move it to staged changes. And it came up and it said, wait a minute, these files are not the same. The file that you had in the repository and the file that you just changed. What do you want to do about it? And so you can see on the left side you've got the change, and on the right side you have the original file. So I'm going to just click. So look up here, you have some options. I'm going to say move copy current changes from left to right. I'm going to do that. I'm going to hit save, and then it moved that file down into staged changes, and I'm going to click the bottom right commit button. Now all that does is it moves, or it puts that file in that leads improvement repository. Now if I am ready to merge that back into master, then what I can do is I double click master and check it out. Select leads improvement and say merge, and it merged that change up into the master repository. Now again, this is only my local copy of master, so it's not up on the server yet. So the final step is I want to push that up to the server. I come up here and I have this little icon right here that says push current branch to upstream, and I press that and it's going to push this up to the remote server. So now if this all worked, I should be able to go out to our repository, and here was the file before, account batch logic, in this source class account batch logic file. I'm going to refresh, and you can now see the new changes in the master copy in the remote repository. And that concludes the demonstration of using the Force.com IDE with a Git repository stored in the Atlassian Stash product. Thank you.